Welcome to part 2 of this lesson in which we're discussing dilations. In this part of the lesson, we're going to go through some examples of dilating an entire graph. So here are the questions that you're going to face in your exercise. It says, find the equation of the image of y equals x cubed plus x dilated from the x-axis by a factor of 2. Now, the way we approach these is the same way we approached the translations from our previous lesson. We use that same notation. So we have our original point, and we're going to our new point. We now rewrite it. Now, because I am dilating from the x-axis, I know that my y value is going to change. X dash, therefore, is just going to remain as x. My y dash, on the other hand, is going to be multiplied by 2. The next thing I do is I create my equations. So I'm going to go x is equal to x dash, and I'm going to go 2y is equal to y dash. I now am going to solve these for x and y. So this is already done. X is already equal to x dash. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So I'm going to divide this by 2, and I'm going to divide this by 2. And that means I'm going to end up with y equals y dash over 2. These are the equations that we are going to sub into our original graph. So let's just highlight them. Let's now write down what our original graph was. It's this right here. It is y is equal to x cubed plus x. Into the y spot, I'm going to put this because I know y equals this. Y dash over 2 is equal to, into my x spots, I'm going to put x dash. So it's going to be x dash cubed plus x. The next step is I solve for y and drop the dashes. So that means in order to solve for y, I'm going to multiply this side by 2, and I'm also going to multiply this entire side by 2. So make sure you've got the brackets there. I'm multiplying this entire side by 2. By doing that, these 2's are going to go away. So let me now write down what we're going to get. We're going to get y dash is equal to 2 brackets x dash that plus x. Whoops, I forgot a dash there. X dash. Like that. Okay, now we can drop these dashes. So this dash is going to go away. And what's actually going to end up happening here is I can drop these dashes. And let me just rewrite this. It's just going to end up being x cubed plus x when I drop those x dashes. And that is my final answer. If I wanted to, I could distribute out this 2. I could go y is equal to 2x cubed plus 2x, but either of those would be an acceptable answer. I actually like this one better, but this 2 is correct. All right, let's now go on to our next question, which is very similar to this one. The only difference with this question, let's give it a read, is that it says, find the equation of the image of y equals x cubed plus x. So that's the same equation we had above, dilated from the y-axis. So above was the x, but now we're dilating from the y-axis by a factor of 2. Okay, we go about it the same way. We start with our original point. We're going to x dash y dash. We rewrite it. If I am dilating from the y-axis, it means x dash is going to be 2x. When I'm dilating from the y-axis, my x value changes. My y dash is just going to be y. Step 2, we create equations. 2x is equal to x dash. 2x is equal to x dash. Y is equal to y dash. We now solve for x and y. So that means here I'm going to divide by 2, and here it's already done. So that means what I'm going to end up with is x is equal to x dash over 2, and here it's already done for me, that. Remember, these equations here are very important because it's what we're going to be substituting into our original equation that we've been given. So remember, we've been given this. And now what I'm going to do, into my y spot, I'm going to put y dash. And into my x spot, I'm going to put x dash over 2. So x dash over 2 cubed plus x dash over 2. Now, it's already solved for y, so I just have to drop the dashes. It's going to be y is equal to x over 2 cubed plus x over 2. And I'm going to leave it just like that. If you wanted to, you could cube the top and the bottom, but let's just leave it as it is, just like that. Actually, let's cube it. Why not? Y is equal to x over 2 cubed is 8. So you could do that as well. So x cubed and over 8 plus x over 2. So either of those would be acceptable. But let's go with this one. All right, now I want to kind of visualize what we've done. I think it's great that we've done it, but I really want you to make sure that you can conceptualize what we're doing here. All right, so let's bring up Desmos. So here is Desmos right here. And here's the graph we started with. So y equals x cubed plus x. And all I've done is I've just labeled a random point here, 1, 2. The first question that we did was a dilation from the x-axis. And we ended up with this equation right here, this right here. As you can see, this is dilated away from the x-axis. It's pushed away from the x-axis. And if I specifically look at this point right here and say, well, if I dilated by a factor of 2 from my x-axis, what is this point going to be on this line here? As you can see, it's going to be there. So what I've done here is I've multiplied my y value by 2. So when I'm dilating from my x, I'm multiplying my y value by the factor. Let's now look at our other one. Let's get rid of that. Let's now look at see what happened when I dilated from the y-axis. Remember, I got this one right here. As you can see, it's pushed away from the y-axis. And if I was just to put in this point here, so this point right here is pushed away from the y-axis, and I've multiplied my x value by 2. So when I dilate from the y-axis, I multiply my x value by the factor of the dilation. Perfect. Now, you probably have also recognized something else. When I dilated from the x-axis, I multiplied the entire equation by the factor, so 2 in this case. And when I dilated from the y-axis, I ended up substituted into my x spot the reciprocal of the factor that I dilated by. And we're going to see that happen again and again. Okay, hopefully all that made sense. Let's continue on. Let's do the next one here. So here we have, find the equation of the image, of this. So that's our original, dilated from the x-axis by a factor of 3. So how are we going to approach this? We're going to go, all right, I have this, which is going to become this. Then I rewrite it. If I am dilating from the x-axis, that means my y value is going to change. X dash is therefore x, y dash is going to be 3y. I then create my equations. X is going to be equal to x dash, 3y is going to be equal to y dash. I rearrange for x and y. This one is already done. This one is going to become y equals y dash over 3. I then write down my original equation that I was given in the question, and I substituted these in. So y is going to be equal to y dash over 3. Let's try that again. 3. And then into my x spot, I'm just going to put x dash. Now I drop the dashes and I solve for y. So it's going to be y is equal to 3, 1 plus 2 over x minus 2. So I drop the dashes, and as you can see, I'm multiplying my original equation by y. And that's what I said would happen when we're dilating from the x-axis. When we're dilating from the x-axis, you take your equation and you multiply it by that factor. So our final thing, if we were to distribute this out, is going to be 3 plus 3 times 2 is 6, x minus 2. That is going to be our answer. Okay. Let's do one more question for this part of the video, then I'll have a part 3. Okay, so it says find the equation of the image of this right here, dilated from the y-axis by a factor of 3. Okay, let's give it a go. So we're going to have xy. Our new point is going to be x dash y dash. Then we're going to go, all right, I have x, y, so I'm rewriting it. Now we come here and we say, I'm dilating from the y-axis, which means my x is going to change, and I'm dilating by a factor of 3. So it's going to become 3x. This is going to be y. Then I create my equation. So I'm saying 3x is equal to x dash, y is equal to y dash. Then I'm going to solve for x. So I'm going to get x is equal to x dash over 3 and y is equal to y dash. I then write my original equation and I'm going to sub in these things right here. So y is equal to y dash and x is going to be equal to x dash over 3. And you've got to make sure that you square it as well because I'm subbing it into that x spot and this x is squared. Then I plus 1 to it. That means my answer is going to be 1 over, and I'm dropping the dashes here, x squared over 9 plus 1, and that's the same as 9 over x squared plus 1. If you just wanted to know why I could go from here to here, you don't have to write this down if you're comfortable with it, but if you're not, I went 1 divided by x squared over 9, right? That's the same thing, 1 divided by x squared over 9. Stay, change, flip. Remember, 1 is just 1 over 1. Multiply the top, multiply the bottom, 9 over x squared. That's how I got it. And that, my friends, is the answer. Let's highlight it. Perfect. Okay, I don't like these videos to be too long, so we'll stop here and then I'll create a part 3. So hopefully you feel comfortable in applying dilations and finding new equations. I'll see you in the next video.